Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm here in a woodland park, or actually woodland trail within a state park in eastern Maryland. I've not been here before, and I'm looking forward to some nice woodland photography. And the conditions are really good for it. It rained all last night, which means that everything is kind of wet and dank today. Well, not dank, but everything's wet today, and moisture really brings out the color in the foliage, as you can probably see all around me. There are birds in the trees, ovenbirds, wood thrush. You know, it's a really typical early spring day in the eastern United States. So I hope I'm going to be able to find at least one or two good compositions this morning. Fortunately, this kind of conditions, if it doesn't rain, the light will stay pretty constant for much of the day. So I've got quite a long window within which to shoot. So let's get started and see what I can find. I think I found something. Down in this little valley here, there's a little kind of a clearing, but it's not really a clearing because it's got ground cover of what looks like, well, it could be skunk cabbage, I'm not quite sure, along with some ferns and trees going up in the middle of them. I think there's definitely a couple of interesting composition possibilities here. So I'm going to walk around down there, look around, set something up, and then I'll walk you through what I find. All right, so I'm sitting in my waterproof pants on the floor here, looking at my first composition. I've gotten down to the little glade, and I've got a little scene here. What I really like is these ferns here leading up to the whatever those plants are. It looks like I said, it might be skunk cabbage or something else. And then these two trees, this one kind of mirroring each other in the way they lean. I might straighten that out in post, but I don't know. I also think I'm going to have to focus stack this just because I really want the ferns sharp and I want the trees sharp. I kind of like the way the light is kind of bleeding in from the upper right corner here, so I think I'm probably going to do a few things with that in post to really try to bring this out. I've got my 24 to 105 lens on here. Actually, I'm going to adjust the tilt just a little bit. My settings right now are ISO 100, no, actually it's 160 right now, 1/5 of a second and f7.1. Actually, I'm going to change the f-stop to f11. And that way when I stack it, it's going to be in the best possible focus in two places that I'm going to focus. Probably just going to be a 2-image stack. First one with the ferns in the front here. And the second one, focus on the tree, the big tree. And I think this is going to be a fairly nice little composition here. I'm probably going to try a horizontal version also, although I think it works better vertically. Actually, horizontally, I don't have a wide enough lens. Actually, that lens should be on this camera, but I might just switch cameras and do the same thing with the wider lens, which is the 14 to 35 over there. So I think I'm also going to try maybe a panorama. So I've got this the pan loosened here. If I take the same thing over here, and then focus here. I went with something that's not going to really be a panorama, more of a square composition. That might actually work pretty well. So I'll play around with this composition a little bit more, and whatever I wind up with that I'm satisfied with, you'll see right here. I ended up creating two focus stacked images and merging them side by side into a panorama. Here you see the uncropped, unedited panel. In the end, this composition is great. There's lots of luscious color, but there isn't a really clear subject or pattern to draw your eye. All right, I've made my way down to the bottom of the ravine here, and I found a composition that I kind of like. It's very simple. Basically, I'm aimed at this this row of whatever that weed is, and it leads just right to these two trees here. This one here, and I might just adjust the angle on this a little bit to show more tree. But it's a very simple woodland composition. I really like the colors of the leaves, the color of the reflection. I'm going to adjust the polarizer here, but this is an interesting thing to show you, that the polarizer can cut all the reflection out or none of the reflection out, and you see what it does to the saturation of color. So what I want to do, I don't want to cut all the reflection out, but most of it, so I'm going to leave it right about there. And that should do me very nicely for this image. So my settings for this right now are ISO 100, f11, 6/10 of a second. I'm going to focus stack this, starting with the leaves in the front, then the first tree, and the tree that's through the back. So I think this is going to come out pretty nice. You'll see what I come up with right now. All right, I've arrived at an overlook over the, I think, Patuxent River. And it's definitely a good area for birding. But I'm going to shift into the bird photography mode for just a little bit. I've got my 100, 500 on here. And I'm going to try not to use the extender simply because the light is kind of bad. I don't want to add any more or reduce any more light than I have to, since that would take my maximum aperture from 7.1 to f10. But you can probably hear several birds in the area. There are osprey. That one took a dive in the water right behind me just a couple minutes ago. There's chickadees. There were ducks. So I'm going to hang around here for a while. It's still fairly early, and since the light's not going to change much over the next hour or so, there's no reason for me. There's no big rush for me to leave here and go for the landscapes again. So, well, hopefully we'll pick up some bird images from this area, and if I do, you'll see them right after I finish talking. Well, the light wasn't great, but I got a couple of decent captures out of that. So I'm going to walk along this woodland trail a little bit longer before turning around and heading back to the car. Definitely is an interesting park, and definitely one I will return to, since I'm going to be in the area for another 2 months. So I'll definitely have plenty of chances to get back here at other times. All right, so moving on down the trail now. All right, well, I'm ducking beneath this branch over my head because I found a composition on the ground. One thing I often do when I'm walking through the woods is look down for interesting leaf arrangements, things like that, as well as, you know, to the left and right for possible composition. So I found a little thing right here. Got this plant that's growing out. There's a little sapling here, surrounded by these fallen beech leaves and a flower back from, I'm not quite sure what kind of flower, it's whatever tree is growing above me. It's not this is a holly. So maybe the beech. But in any case, it's a fallen flower, so I've got basically some green, yellow, red going on here. I'm going to turn the polarizer around a little bit, see what that does. Not much because it's a cloudy day. And it's not really doing anything, so I'll leave it on anyway. So my focus stack is going to be 20 exposures with starting at the closest point to me, which is the top leaf of that one green plant. All right, so I focused on it. I'm going to set the exposure, and it's running right now. All right, so I think that worked. I'll put this together in Photoshop. And if it works out well, you're going to see it right here. I really like the R5's automated focus bracketing feature for shooting macros and other close-up photography. Of the 20 exposures I took, I only needed the first 8 to get the entire image in focus. Hey, we have a rhododendron bush here, which is just beginning to bloom. The flowers are not open yet, they're just little buds, but even little buds can make an interesting composition. So I'm going to whip out the macro lens, which I haven't used in a while, give it a little workout, and hopefully I'll get something good. All right, I've nudged myself about as close to that flower as I can get. And while it doesn't look like it's moving to you, definitely can see it's moving. If you look here on the camera, and on the video camera here, or the stills camera, I'm focused on this flower right there. But it's it's right in the middle of the frame. Got a couple others right behind it. The video view here is slightly cropped for 4K, but I do have actually 6 blooms in the 6 buds, I should say, in the field of view. I'm focused on the front one. I'm probably going to try a few different apertures to see which depth of field I like the best. So my starting settings right now are ISO 400 and f4 at 1/20th of a second. So that's going to have most of these flowers actually out of focus, except for the very front one. And the thing is that my shutter speed is going to be very delicate because of the fact that there is very, very slight breeze that's moving the flowers just a little bit, and this close to the lens, a little movement makes a lot. So we don't want to keep the shutter speed much slower than 1/50th of a second, which means I'm going to have to jump this ISO up a little bit, put it up to ISO 800. Let's see, 1/50th of a second, ISO 800, that at f4. As I stop down, I'm probably gonna have to raise the ISO even more to keep the shutter speed fast enough to freeze the flower, I should say. All right, that worked out pretty well. I'm going to do a few more variations with different ISOs in different apertures. In fact, I'm going to open it up to 2.8, go all the way down to like f10 because, and the thing is that even at f10, a lot of this flower is going to be out of focus because the closer you are to the subject, the less depth of field that you have for a given aperture. So f10 is still going to have a lot of the flowers kind of out of focus. So I'm going to take a few, and whichever one I like the best, or ones I like the best, if it's more than one, you're going to see right now. The very slight breeze caused motion blur on the buds with any shutter speed slower than 1/25th of a second. On top of that, I had to stop down to f10 to get the front bud in good focus. Luckily, the R5 produced little noise at ISO 1600. I used the noise software to remove the little noise there was. So I thank you for joining me on this little adventure. I'm going to wrap it up after I take a few more shots right along this boardwalk and along the beaver pond that's to my left here. There's actually a beaver lodge, and I've actually heard as I was walking across the other side, the beavers splashing, as they submerge. Thanks for joining me again. And if you're not already subscribed and you want to see more of this content, please hit the notification bell or hit the subscription button that's right down here. Hit the notification bell so that with all notifications, so that the next time I upload, you'll see it right away. Thanks for joining me again. Until the next time, I'll see you around. Bye. If you're still watching, I sincerely thank you. Please give this video a like and share your comments about which images you liked or didn't like. Your feedback really helps the channel grow. See you soon.